All right, if you're into health and longevity at all, chances are you've heard about this one specific workout. It's being called the gold standard for improving a key metric for a long life. So today, let's really dig in and separate the hype from the actual science.
So what's all the fuss about? Well, it really all starts with this massive claim from some of the biggest names in the space, like Dr. Rhonda Patrick and Dr. Peter Attia. They're saying that your VO2 max, which is basically how efficiently your body uses oxygen, is maybe the single most important thing to look at for predicting how long and how well you're going to live. Okay, if that's true, the next question is pretty obvious, right? How do we make it better?
And that question, how do we improve it, leads to some seriously dramatic claims. I mean, get this. One really influential study suggested that a certain kind of training could actually reverse the age of your heart by 20 years. We're talking about a 50-year-old's heart starting to look and function like a 30-year-old's. That is a huge claim.
And this is exactly what's led to the rise of what a lot of people are calling the ultimate longevity workout. You see it everywhere. Influencers, biohackers, even doctors are all pointing to this one specific protocol. You've probably heard it called the 4x4, and they're touting it as the key to unlocking all these amazing benefits.
Right, so what is this thing? It's officially known as the Norwegian 4x4 protocol. And look, while it sounds pretty intense, the actual structure is surprisingly simple. So let's just break down exactly what we're talking about here.
Okay, here's how it works. It's super straightforward. You start with 4 minutes at a pretty high intensity. Now, we're talking hard enough that you definitely can't hold a conversation, but it's not a flat-out, all-out sprint. You've got to be able to hang on for those full 4 minutes. Then, you get a nice 3-minute break of light, active recovery, just enough to bring your heart rate down a bit. You're going to repeat that whole cycle 4 times. And here's the kicker. The people who are big fans of this say you only need to do this one tough workout once a week.
Yeah, that sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? One single magic workout that's going to solve everything. But is it really that simple? Let's actually go and look at the research that kicked this whole thing off.
Okay, to really get to the bottom of this, we need to go back to a landmark 2007 paper from a group of Norwegian researchers. They basically wanted to find the most effective way to boost VO2 max, so they set up a showdown, pitting 4 different training styles against each other to see what would happen. And the results? Well, this is exactly why the 4x4 protocol blew up. After 8 weeks, the group doing the 4x4 workout saw their VO2 max improve by over 7%. The next best group, which was doing these short little 15-second intervals, only got about a 5.5% boost. And get this, the groups doing more traditional cardio, like a steady run or a long, slow jog, they saw almost no improvement. So based on this one study, the 4x4 looks like the absolute undisputed champion.
But this is where we need to pump the brakes and look a little closer. According to exercise scientist Steve Magnus, this study, while super important, has some major issues. For one, they only measured stuff in the lab, not how people actually performed in, say, a race. 2, the training schedule was, well, kind of nuts. No real athlete does the exact same brutal workout 3 times a week for 8 weeks straight. And here's the biggest critique. The 4x4 group got better at the VO2 max test because their training looked a lot like the VO2 max test. It's a classic principle called specificity. You get good at what you practice.
And that brings us to the most crucial point of all. Maybe the magic isn't in the specific 4x4 minute recipe. Maybe the real magic is in understanding the ingredients, the intensity, the duration, the rest, and learning how to be a chef. Learning how to combine them in different ways.
So this really leads to 2 totally different ways of looking at your training. On one side, you've got the fixed protocol mindset. This is the idea that the only way to improve is to do that exact 4x4 workout, but just try to go a little bit faster each time. The problem? Your body is smart. It adapts, and eventually, you're going to hit a wall. But then there's the principles mindset, which is way more flexible. This way of thinking says you can get better by tweaking any of the variables to always give your body a new and interesting challenge to overcome.
So let's make this practical. Instead of just trying to go faster all the time, what else can you do? Let's say you've hit a plateau with your 4x4s. Well, you could try extending the interval duration. Maybe instead of 4 4-minute intervals, you try a couple of 5-minute ones. You're just asking your body to hold that tough pace for a little bit longer.
Or you could attack it from a completely different angle and shorten the rest period. Squeezing that 3-minute rest down to 2.5 minutes, that's a whole different kind of challenge for your body's recovery system.
And hey, sometimes you might need to change the whole structure. Maybe switch it up to something like 6 3-minute intervals.
This lets you push the pace a little more, and that could be the exact breakthrough your body needs to adapt.
Okay, so what does this all mean for your training? How do you take all this and build an actual blueprint? Let's talk about how you can apply these principles to really, and I mean intelligently, improve your VO2 max.
Well, Magnus basically says there are two main ways to go about this. The first is what he calls the specificity path. This is pretty much what we've been talking about, using those longer intervals, anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes, to spend as much time as you can right at that VO2 max intensity. But then there's the incomplete rest path. This is totally different. Think of those really punchy workouts like 30 seconds hard, 15 seconds easy. The key is that the rest is so short that your VO2 max never really gets a chance to drop. It stays high, and you end up accumulating that training stress in a completely different way.
So what's the big takeaway here? It really all boils down to 4 key ideas. First, specificity. Yeah, you got to train hard, near your VO2 max to actually improve it. Second, variation. You can't just do the same workout over and over and expect to improve forever. You have to mix it up. Third, progression. You have to find smart ways to keep making it harder over time by changing up those variables. And finally, and this one is so important, foundation. None of this hard stuff works if you don't have a solid base of easy aerobic training underneath it all. That's what lets you recover and actually benefit from the hard work.
And that really brings us to the main point, and honestly, my favorite takeaway. As Steve Magnus says, there is no magic workout. And listen, that shouldn't feel disappointing. It should feel freeing. It means you can finally stop searching for some magic formula, and instead, you get to be an artist. You get to use these principles to create the training that works perfectly for you and your goals.
Look, at the end of the day, the 4x4 protocol is a fantastic tool. Not because it's some magic spell, but because it's a great teacher. It teaches us the principles of how our bodies adapt. So the real question we should be asking isn't what's the magic workout, it's, okay, now that I get the principles, how am I going to use them on my own journey?